So I get a lot of questions from people who ask me, should I be focusing on strength? Should I be focusing on fat loss? Should I be focusing on muscle building? Should I be focused on getting leaner? Um, and people look at it as kind of like this dichotomy, whether you have to be pursuing one or the other. Um, the reality is that that dichotomy is actually a very false one, because a lot of the same processes that facilitate fat burning are also going to facilitate you being able to build muscle and get stronger. Particularly if you're older like me, but even when you're younger. And in that main process we're trying to manipulate and change is metabolism. We're trying to change our body's metabolism. We're trying to convince our body, which has been through thousands of years of evolution and has benefited from storing fat for long distances and has benefited from deteriorating muscle mass in times of poverty. We have to convince our body that it's okay to build muscle mass, that it's okay to add to your musculature. Because you have to remember that, we all think of bodybuilders as having superior genetics for building muscle, but the reality is in survival, that wasn't the case. If there's ever a zombie apocalypse out there, the first people to die are going to be the top 8 people at the Olympia, because they're going to be slow, and if they hadn't eaten in 2 hours, they're going to bonk, their brain's going to go to mush, and they're going to get moody, and they're going to make bad decisions, and so you're going to see a lot of zombies eating a lot of big muscular men. But but that's besides the point. The big thing we want to focus on for us is understanding that our body doesn't necessarily want to put on all that muscle because it's not necessarily an evolutionary advantage. So we have to spend our time trying to convince the body that it's okay that we can put on some muscle and that we can burn some fat. So how do we do that? Well, we do that by preserving something called insulin sensitivity. We do that by preserving our thyroid health. We do that by making sure that we're not overeating calories or under eating calories. And so we have to find a happy medium somewhere. And you have to understand that when you bulk and you eat tons of carbohydrates and tons of protein, what's happening is your body is trying to continuously find a place for those nutrients to go through the help of the hormone insulin. And insulin works by shuttling nutrients throughout your body, either to your muscle cells, your liver cells, and if it goes to the muscle cells, then insulin is storing glucose as glycogen, muscle energy. If it goes to the liver cells, on the other hand, it's got to convert a lot of those nutrients to fat, and they're going to be stored in your fat cells. And this happens whether you're eating protein or carbohydrates, because we're talking about glucose here, right? And if you eat an abundance of protein over your requirements, what happens is a process called gluconeogenesis. And so that through that process, glucose is converted, proteins and amino acids are converted to glucose, and then that glucose can likely be converted to fat. So regardless of whether we're talking about building muscle or burning fat, if you are overeating, you're starving your muscle cells and feeding your fat cells, because your body is not sending nutrients to your muscle cells. And so a lot of times you'll see people who bulk for a long period of time, they'll get fat, but when they slim down, they haven't built much muscle mass. And at times when they slim down, they look skinnier than they did before. I've seen a lot of people do their first bodybuilding competitions, and it literally looks like they've come out of concentration camps. And these are people who got huge in their quote unquote off season, and it's because that whole bulking formula a lot of times doesn't work, particularly if you have not put the base work in to build some muscle in the first place. So what we really want to focus on, regardless of if we're trying to build muscle or burn fat, is preserving that insulin sensitivity. And so rather than bulking or cutting, what we want to do is we want to have a diet that continuously allows us to send nutrients to our muscle cells rather than our fat cells. And that's why I go low carb, high fat. because I found it's the best diet for me to preserve my insulin sensitivity. Now, that's not to say that there's other people out there that can't tolerate more carbohydrates than I can. The biggest thing I suggest, if you're not going high carb or high fat, low carb, is to time your carbohydrates after activity. When you're eating calories, you eat more calories on the days that you do more work, and you eat less calories on the days that you don't. So if you've got a hard squat session that day and you've got some metabolic conditioning, eat more calories, and especially eat more carbohydrates if you want. Don't overeat them, but you know, base it off of that activity. If you're sitting on your couch all day and playing video games, and you're sitting and you're overeating, that's not bulking. That's overeating. That's being lazy. That's you know, you're feeding your fat source. Maybe you're not lazy. Maybe you're doing something else. I don't mean to call you lazy, but you're feeding your fat stores rather than your muscle stores. So don't lie to yourself about it. And you know, regardless, we just need to be intelligent about this. So if you're doing a bulk and you notice that you're getting a lot of fat around your gut, and you notice that you're way out of shape, and you're noticing that you're not seeing any extra muscle mass, guess what? The bulk's not working. Slim down, pull the calories back a bit, move more. You know, make sure you're training, because training is going to increase the amount of receptor sites for you to receive insulin. So make sure you're moving, training, reduce those calories, and you will probably see a good amount of gain back of your muscle mass, because you'll stop feeding the fat stores as much, and you'll start feeding your muscles. I know this tends to be a confusing subject. I have many videos about it here on this channel. If you got questions for me, hit me up at info@warriorsoulapparel.com. I will try to answer them to the best of my ability, and I'll try to answer more about this stuff as we move forward through our days in this year. Yeah. All right. I will talk to you guys later.